Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Rebecca from the fourth set of the One Piece card game Kingdoms of Intrigue that comes out in about 1 month of this video dropping, and I'm really excited for the set. I think a lot of people are, and Rebecca is probably one of my favorite leaders in the set in general, and kind of to build and test and everything else. So we're going to be talking about the kind of key cards for the archetype, and we're going to have an example deck list at the end as well. Also, I did do a bunch of testing on my Twitch. There is a link to the VOD for it in the description as well if you guys want to check that out. Highly recommend you do, and just a lot of games with Rebecca in the first place. So we're going to start off with kind of just what the leader does. So it's a multicolor leader, but it has 5 life, which is pretty unique. Most of them only have 4 life, and kind of the trade-off for it is that this leader cannot attack. That's like the first thing for it, so that is a little bit of a detriment for it. Obviously, not being able to attack with your leader is pretty rough, which we've seen with Iceberg in the previous set, and I really think this is kind of an evolution of kind of Iceberg, which Iceberg wasn't very strong, but like the fact that you're able to have like a really good activate main associated with it meant like you could kind of see that trade-off. So I think the trade-off for this one is that instead of having 4 life, you have 5, but the leader can't attack. But honestly, the active main for Rebecca is fantastic. It says activate main once per turn for 1 Dawn. If you have 6 or less cards in your hand, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 Dressrosa type card, so it can be an event, stage, or character, and add it to your hand, and then you get to put the rest in the trash. So which is important because we do want specific cards in the trash at the same time. So I think this is honestly really good. I also think that if this leader was at 4 life and could attack, it'd probably be even better than what it is. So I think 5 life is fair, and a good trade-off for the losing the ability to attack with the leader, especially with this one, since we do have a lot of alternative opportunities to attack on play. So kind of with the idea with the Colosseum. So this is the Corrida Colosseum here. And if your leader has Dressrosa type, your characters that have Dressrosa type can attack characters on the turn that they are played. So very good. Essentially gives all your characters rush, at least when they're attacking into other characters, which is strong. It only costs 1, and there also are some just reasons for having this on, wanting it to have on the board. So, and this is also a really searchable card. Obviously, this is a card you can search off your own Rebecca and a couple other cards, but this definitely makes the effect of the leader not being able to attack not as, I think, punishing as anything else. So it only costs 1 to play, so it's pretty cheap to set it up, and I think there are decks that, versions of this that don't run it, so if you don't like it, you don't have to. I also don't think you have to run this at 4, even if you do like running it. But it's a very solid card once you get it established and kind of everything else. So some of the staples for the archetype in general, we do have like Rebecca, which just says on play, look top 3, reveal a Dressrosa type other than Rebecca and add it to your hand, then trash the remaining. So it feels good to kind of trash cards from your deck and put them in your trash as well. It's just the fact that you get the search, which is nice. We have I probably am not saying this right, but Gates. So it's a 1K, it's a 2K counter though, which is really nice, and has an on play of up to 1 of your characters with Dressrosa type may attack your opponent's characters inactive during this turn. And I thought this effect was kind of bad, but you can choose Gates itself, so you can or Gats itself. That's probably how it's pronounced, Gats. In the sense that you can play it, and then if you have the Colosseum out, and you can just put like 4 or 5 Dawn underneath it. So if you are like worried about like a blocker or something else that's in active mode, you can just play it, target itself, swing into it, and get some really good advantage. So I think this is pretty good removal in itself. Most of the stuff that you want to get rid of in active mode are probably like a bunch of weenies that are hanging out anyways. So being able to use like your Dawn to get over that, I think is really good. And then we got Bart as well. It's a 2K, but it's also blocker that costs 3. It's obviously a little expensive for a blocker, but it's a 2K counter, which is really nice. So I don't often play this. Sometimes I do if I've got literally nothing else to do. He's okay. But the fact that it has a Dressrosa as its type means it's very searchable too, which is really good. So there are the staples. And then we kind of have like this really good removal engine with it. There are a lot of cards that aren't mentioned in this one, but I do want to just kind of go over these cards in particular because I think they are the best. There are a lot of cards that kind of rest your leader to use an effect, and because of that, they don't mesh with each other really well, unfortunately. So I think these 3 individually can all just do different things to pay their cost, which means they interact with each other kind of really nice. So we have Orlumbus here. So activate main once per turn, reduce the cost of up to 1 of your opponent's characters by 4 during this turn, and trash the top 2 cards of your deck. Then KO up to 1 Dressrosa type character. So you do have to pay the cost of KOing something. It could be itself. It's usually going to be probably like a 1-drop like Rebecca or Gyatz if you played that earlier, and then you get that -4, which is really nice. So you get to do that. You can even KO itself if you need to. So and then also we have Leo, which is on play. You may rest your leader. If your leader has the Dressrosa type, KO up to one of your opponent's characters, cost 1 or lower, and then also trash top 2 cards of your deck. So additionally too, you'll see this, the then part. You don't have to KO something to get the trashing, so that's kind of important for you as well. And that's just something to mention. So even if you don't have anything to pop, but you need to get some cards into your trash, you can just use the effect of just playing this, resting your leader and trashing too. So really helpful there. And we have Kairos, which is probably the best one. This card's really absurd. I'm going to move out of the way a little bit so you guys can read it. So if this character would be KO'd, you can rest one of your leaders or your Colosseum instead. This is KO'd by literally anything, battle, by effect, anything you can think of, you can just rest one of those. So your opponent, it's kind of just like, it gets 2 like safeties really easily, which is nice, and it's just very hard to remove. On top of, it has a really great on-play effect. So if your leader is Rebecca, KO up to one of your opponent's characters, the cost of 1 or less, then trash 1 card from the top of your deck. Additionally, it doesn't matter how it's KO'd, which is important because if you have Orlumbus here, you can use its effect to pop, try to KO. And kind of the way it works is that the KOing is an effect, but it's not a mandatory cost. So you attempt to KO, it doesn't KO, or you pay you revive it, and then you're fine, which we'll see. There's another card that interacts with that too. So the fact that it's not a cost, like you can even see in Leo's effect, resting one of your characters, that's in bold, and there's like the colon there. So that means that that's required for the effect, and then everything else is just do as much as possible. So for Olympus, the only thing is you just activate it, and then after that, the rest is just fine. So if you have to KO it, you have to try to KO something. If you target Kairos, you can just again rest your leader, your Colosseum, and you're in a good spot. So, but also, and then if your leader is Rebecca, you can KO up to one of your opponent's characters, cost of 1 or less, then trash 1 card from the top of your deck. So very good there. I like the card, and I think it's very flexible for what it is as well. So these are like the 3 I feel like most decks are running, and there's just so much advantage that you get to do because of it. So there we go there. And then the super rares for the the archetype itself, we've got Sabo here, Dressrosa and Revolution Army. It's blocker. It's a 5-drop 6k with a 1k counter, and on play your characters can't be KO'd by effects until the start of your next turn, and then you get to draw 2, trash 2, which is really good. Getting that cycle, being able to put 2 cards into your trash is great, and being able to it protects everything from every kind of effect. So again, if you had Orlumbus here, use its effect after you played the Sabo to KO itself, it will be protected, and you get to still use the effect because it's do as much as possible. And then kind of the boss monster for it, we do have this Monkey D. Luffy. This character can attack cards in attack active characters. So you can do some really cool things. If you have the Colosseum out, you can play the Luffy out, and then you can just immediately attack into something, which is great. But also the fact that it says activate main once returned, you return 7 cards from your trash to the bottom of your deck in any order to set this character to active. Then during your next refresh phase, this character cannot be set to active. So being able to attack to potentially twice in the same turn whenever you need to is really great. Obviously you have like the cost of like the next turn you won't be able to do that, but it's puts a lot of decision making on when that's important for you. 7 is, I think, a really good number for the effect because it feels like it's always something you can pay, but it will, if you keep getting greedy with it, then it's going to be in a tough spot. And you'll also see that there's some effects that, again, you need to be at 15 or more, so that obviously will help hinder that as well. So, but I think the card is great. There's just a lot of synergy with it, and it's just solid removal. Again, like if you just see it, a card that has rush, then it can also attack cards that are active is very strong in this game right now. So, one of the key pieces for it. So also this nothing about Luffy is leader locked, so if you wanted to play Luffy in a different deck, you definitely could, and then you could just have it like a boss monster that can swing twice. Obviously you won't be able to use the effect to get anything, but like I think this could be like a card that's really good in like the starter deck Luffy, unironically, even though that leader's kind of just okay. Just the fact that you are able to attack twice, you can use it to KO stuff. I think could be something there. So I don't know. I think the card is great and flexible, and we'll see definitely a lot of it in the set. All right, some events that we're going to talk about. We start off with Barrier, a pretty simple counter, but one that can be really important for black. So up to one of your leaders or characters gets +2 power for this battle. Then if your trash is at least 15 cards, gain another +2k power. So it's Rad Beam, but you have to have 15 cards into your trash, which is a lot. It's quite a bit for that. But then +4k. We just black doesn't have any better one drop events for counter, so this is potentially a really good one to investigate with in the next format. Also is the trigger of draw 2 and trash 1, which is pretty common for a lot of the triggers for black in general. Now obviously it can be good in Rebecca because it fills your trash too, puts 2 cards in the trash itself and the 1 card you discard. We also have the Gum Gum King Kong gun, which is quite a menace. It's a main, choose one of your Dressrosa characters, gets +6k power. And then after, if your trash has 15 or more cards, this character gains double attack for the turn. So most people put on Luffy because you can make it a 13k that can attack twice, which is a lot of pressure with double strike, or double attack, which is really good. It can also, there've also just been times where like I need to get like some removal of some big boss monsters on my opponent's board, so I can play Luffy for 7 Dawn. For 3 Dawn I can play the King Kong gun, and that's a 13k headed into like let's say an 8k or 9k body, and if they get rid of it I can just use the activate main to do it again, which is really nice. So it's some pretty good removal, obviously. And then literally anything can get the boost and the double attack, so it can be even something like Leo can become an 8k double attack if it needed to, with the cost there. You do have to be kind of wary about cards into your trash too, which is really important to keep track of in general with this deck. Might be one of the harder things to do with it, but there we go. And then lastly, we have the Destructive Sword of Thunder. Main, choose up to one of your opponent's characters, cost a 4 or less, and KO it. And then if your trash is 15 or more, choose a 6 cost instead. So just good removal, especially because like you can use this in conjunction with your Olympus. So 4 + 6 is 10, so you can KO anything in the game if you have the setup, which is really great. And then the trigger is you may rest your leader, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. So can be flexible in any leader. Obviously, most will be already unactive, so you wouldn't be able to pay the cost of resting your leader. So you would kind of need that. So I don't know. I think it's still a strong card and some really good removal in the color. So, but that's all of the things we're going to talk about for at least specific cards for this. And let's go into the example deck list. And here's my example deck list. There are a couple ways to build this, but I think most of the core cards are pretty understood, at least at this point. There were a bunch of Dressrosa cards that we didn't talk about that I think are just a little bit unoptimal, but they are some. If you guys want to check them out, I highly recommend it. But kind of the point for this build too is you just get a lot of early advantage. Like this leader effect is so good. Like just being able to say, oh, I get to just draw a card. I have to be at 6 or less cards, but that's really easy to do, especially with countering. Just counter early so you can always get that cycle and you just get that extra defense, which I think is really, really nice for you. But early game we want to try to prioritize of setting up like Rebecca's, or even like if you can just play your Kairos and use that to just pop one of your opponent's 1-drops. If this hits on board on turn 3 and then like you play like the Colosseum afterwards, your opponent's going to have a lot of time hard time trying to get rid of this, because again it has essentially 2 protections on your leader and your Colosseum. The only thing that taps our leader is Leo, and technically the event in the trigger. So that's not too rough for you there. I do think like the Luffy, again, very strong. Sabo, very strong. I think these are understood. The cards that we add from outside of the archetype, one are some extra 2Ks. Between Suru and also Toshigi, I think both have their merits. Sometimes you just don't mind playing Toshigi for 3, and then you can have an extra body and use it again. It just means your opponent has to like invest some time into it, which is usually means you're winning a little bit, and just they have to swing into it, which means you can swing into something else next turn, which is great. We also are blue, technically, right? That's half of this card, but obviously all of the archetype is in black. So, but some just good generic blue cards. We have 3,000 Worlds, which is fantastic, as you guys already know, and like the bigger brother of 3,000 Worlds, which is Gum Gum Red Rock. Just bottom decking anything is great. Fine, like you just for 6, bottom deck something. I don't have to worry about it again. There are some, there is a fear of kind of getting out tempoed with this deck too, where if your opponent plays like a big 9 or 10, like even like a 10 drop Big Mom, you might have some issues with it. So being able to just say, you know what, I don't even care, bottom deck it, you're in a good spot. And also, since 3,000 Worlds is dependent on the cost of your opponent's cards, you can obviously use some effects like, again, Tashigi, Suru, or Lumbus to get something minus, into the 5 or less, and you can bottom deck it with this card too. So up to you. I'm doing a 2-2 split. I think that's great. Gum Gum King Kong Gun at 3 feels really good. I think that's solid. And then also we talked about the Coliseum. I like playing it right now. I might not in the future. Originally, I saw some decks that were running 2 copies. Like, wow, why would you not run 4? And the reason is it's actually really searchable in between your leader and your Rebecca effect and just everything else. You will eventually find it. Also, like Sabo draws 2, discards 2. You won't have any issue finding this card at all at 3. So I think that's probably a good number. 2 can also be there too. You might miss it occasionally, but 4 is too much. And again, if you don't like it all, just run it at 0. Not a big deal. So that is kind of like an example deck. And then also just some additional cards to kind of talk about. We already talked about Suru, but we didn't talk about like you can run like the good Navy cards. Obviously, they are in black. You do have to be worried that sometimes you have to be really, really into the Dressrosa archetype, because if you whiff twice off top 2, you will just like go minus. You won't like lose advantage, but you just won't grab that card, which is kind of rough. I have been, there he goes. I have been really thinking about using Isho for this deck because he does seem like a pretty good menace, and just the fact that we don't have like a really big top end for this deck, and just the fact as well that you can put a Dawn underneath him, gives everything -3, which really trades up very well again into all of our removal because it's cost-based removal. So getting stuff into that, like even just -3, and then you can play Leo for 1 to pop something that costs 4 or less technically, I think is a good trade. So that's probably a card that I'm going to be looking into trying a little bit. I think the Isho is probably the next one I add to the deck, but everything else is great. Obviously Sakazuki, just generic popping cards, which is great. Borsellino, I don't think you need as much because I think that Sabo is just as great in the spot. Kuzan's really tempting. Kuzan's really, really, really tempting. Just because he's, again, a generically good card. You get a draw when you play it, and then you get to attack, go give something -4. So like as like 2 backup copies over Orlumbus, I don't think is a bad call either. So that is there. But that's going to be the deck list and the overview for us. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Let me know what leader you guys want me to cover next. We'll be doing some more streaming on my Twitch on Tuesday and Thursday next week as well. And we're probably going to be focusing on a new leader every time. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.